Hello everyone, welcome to ANIMERIUM. Today's video is going to be about top 6 manhwa where the protagonist returns to the past after death. There are many manhwa for this type, but I will only include the ones where the story takes place in modern times and does not have too much magic or sci-fi themes. Instead, these manhwas will be focused on more realistic scenarios. The first manhwa we have is Return of the Legend. The protagonist in this manhwa works for a security company. Due to a certain turn of events, the company goes bankrupt, making the protagonist unemployed. He goes through all kinds of hardships just to make enough to get by. One day, he sees a kid trying to cross the road, when suddenly, a speeding car comes by. The protagonist dies while trying to save the kid. But then, he opens his eyes and sees an old man standing in front of him who claims to be his ancestor. All of this leads to him being sent back in time to the point where he was just a school student. After realizing what had happened, he decides that he will become the richest person in the world and do all the things that he wanted to do in his previous life but couldn't. The protagonist is smart and cunning. He knows how to deal with tough situations while being level-headed. When he decides to do something, he makes it sure to see it through. This is the story of the one who wants to conquer the world through the power of money. This manhwa is currently at 37 chapters. The second manhwa we have is once again Idol. The protagonist in this manhwa is a trainee idol who was about to make his debut after 10 years but loses everything because of an accident that occurs on the stage. His face gets burned, destroying his dreams along with it. After some time, he follows the advice of his manager and becomes a coach for other trainees. But this was not what fate had in store for him. One day, he got on a plane with the idol group in charge of going abroad when an unexpected incident occurs which causes the plane to crash, resulting in everyone's death. But this was not the end of the protagonist. He opens his eyes to see that he had returned back in time to when he was still a trainee before the accident. After coming to terms with what had happened, he decides to pursue his dream of becoming an idol once again. But this time, he also has the experience as a professional trainer which he uses to his advantage. This manhwa is more of a slice of life and comedy than an action-adventure story and is currently at 45 chapters. The third manhwa is called First Year Max Level Manager. It's another manhwa about entertainment business. The protagonist of this manhwa is a successful man who became the vice president of the top entertainment company and helped in creating many superstars. To top it off, he was married to the top actress of his time. Even though he had all this, he always felt empty inside. He lost his smile 10 years ago, and now he lies on a hospital bed with only 1 month left to live. If this wasn't enough, his wife also betrays him and sends him the divorce papers. At this moment, the protagonist begins to think about what would have happened if he had made different choices. He dies in that hospital bed, but opens his eyes while sitting on a bench. After finding out what had happened, he learns that he had gone back in time to the point when he had just started his career in the industry. The protagonist has been given another chance to make up for the mistakes of his past life. He looks at his mobile phone and sees a strange diary inside it. This diary has all the events of his past life in it. He then uses this diary to make the correct choices and help his friends whom he had left in his previous life. Thus begins the second life of the manager who now possesses professional level skills right from the start. This manhwa is currently at 45 chapters. The fourth manhwa we have is Second Life of a Gangster. This one takes a different turn from the previous ones. The protagonist was the leader of a large gang. He had done all sorts of evil things to reach this point. He hurt a lot of innocent people, killed his rivals, and even caused the death of his own father. One day, his karma gets him. He gets stabbed in the back by his subordinates and barely manages to escape with fatal injuries. At his last moments, he begins to regret the things that he had done and wanted to atone for his mistakes, but it was too late and he dies. The protagonist then opens his eyes to see an angel in front of him. The angel tells him that he had committed unforgivable acts and that he will be going to hell. But after listening to him regret doing everything that he had done, the angel decides to give him another chance and sends him back to the past. The angel also tells him that he will still be going to hell regardless of what he does, but he is determined to atone for his sins. He returns back to his school days. Just before he dropped out of school, the protagonist awakens once again as a teenager. He then decides to live his life in a virtuous way and become a good person. He decides to stay away from trouble, but trouble comes knocking right at his door. How will a gangster live his second life? How will he atone for all the things that he had done? Read the manhwa to learn more about him and what choices he will make now. This manhwa is currently at 116 chapters. The fifth manhwa we have is Again My Life. Although this manhwa follows the same trend of regression after death, but the story of this one is more practical and relatable. Of course, except the fact that the protagonist travels back in time. The protagonist of this manhwa was a prosecutor who was on a case related to a tyrant who controlled the country from the shadows while being a model citizen. The protagonist gets murdered while trying to bring the tyrant to justice. After getting fatally injured by the killer, he sinks into the ocean. When he dies, he meets the Grim Reaper. The Grim Reaper tells him that she will send him back to when he was just 18 years old. But before sending him back, the Reaper also tells him to prepare to bring that tyrant to justice. She also tells him that to get the devil, you have to become one yourself. The protagonist wakes up as a teenager and starts making his plans to go up against his enemy. With the experience of his past life as a prosecutor and his knowledge about the law, he starts to carefully gain more influence in order to go up against the corrupt people of the country. This manhwa is currently at 141 chapters. The sixth and the last manhwa in this list is called Medical Return. The life of the protagonist of this manhwa hits rock bottom. From the beginning, nothing went as planned. He was bullied in school and barely passed his exams to get into college. He then became a surgeon, but due to his mediocre skills, he was kicked out by the competition. If this wasn't enough, his wife also left him as he could not be there for her when she needed him. To rub salt on his wounds, he gets diagnosed with terminal cancer. He then turns to alcohol to get away from his sorrows, but even that doesn't help. One day, while drunk, he meets a young girl whose life he had saved along with her loved one. She asks him about what had happened and offers him a drink. Thinking of it as alcohol, he drinks what the girl gave him. After that, he begins to black out. The protagonist falls asleep and wakes up to see that he has become a teenager. After thinking about what had happened to him, he learns that he has returned back in time and has been given another chance to make things right. That girl called herself the Maid of Heaven and was the one who sent him back. He then thanks her for it and decides to make the correct choices in his second life, starting from his exams. This manhwa is now complete with 148 chapters. That's it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. The manhwas in this video are ranked according to the number of chapters as per the recording date of this video. If you guys like the content that I upload, then a thumbs up and a sub to the channel would be great. I will be back with another video with more related content in the future. Till then, take care and see you next time.